Alright, I know.
It's been 84 years.
I've not uploaded or streamed or tweeted for the longest amount of time since I started this channel, but I actually kinda have a good excuse this time. I started 2 new jobs around the same time and recently moved places, so that's what my focus has been on for the past few months. But I'm pretty settled into the new place and I'm finding more time to write and edit and all that fun stuff now, so I'm starting to get back into the swing of things. Now with all of that out of the way, we gotta talk about that November 5th update. The second video on this channel covered why Animal Crossing is one of my all-time favorite gaming series, and I even did a little mini-series of the first week of gameplay back when New Horizons dropped and we all had nothing but time on our hands to watch the grass grow during the first few weeks of quarantine. After that honeymoon period, I've been sporadically playing here and there with a couple of weeks of consistent play between months of not playing at all, but I haven't been doing the play for a little bit every day thing that you're supposed to be doing for quite a while. I kinda knew that I wanted to return to the game, both playing and covering, and this update seemed like the perfect time to do so. Contrasting one of the worst recent trends in gaming, New Horizons was already pretty complete when it launched. Say what you will about Nintendo and their many questionable practices, they do a pretty good job of shipping complete games. So this hasn't ever felt like one of those scummy situations where they launched a game that wasn't finished and have slowly added in content that should have been in from the start. That being said, most of the big updates have been returning features from previous games, but they added in so many new features at launch that everything they've added kinda just feels like extra. The November 5th update continues with that trend and is mostly composed of stuff returning from New Leaf. Ordinances are back and they're kind of a bigger deal than they seem, particularly the early bird and late night ones. There are days when I don't get home from work until 10:30 or 11, and as someone who chooses not to time travel, that meant that if I didn't get up early enough to play before I left for work, I just wasn't able to shop or sell items for full price. Early bird is good for people who are in situations opposite to mine, and Bell Boom and Beautiful Island can both be useful for different players depending on how they play the game. Probably being the most requested returning character, our boy Brewster is finally back.
Disgusting!
He's kinda similar to Maybell, where the more you visit him and buy coffee, the more he opens up, eventually offering you small rewards for your patronage. I always really liked running around with a little to-go coffee cup in New Leaf, and after a few days of drinking at the counter, you can do it again here. As a side note, New Horizons has so many little items for you to hold while you walk around that don't really serve a purpose, but they're nice to look at. It's only right that we talk about gyroids after Brewster, and I've gotta say, they're a lot cooler now. They kinda all look the same but with different color palettes in previous games, but they have more distinct physical appearances now and can also be customized. It seems like the easiest way to get them is by going on a tour with Cap'n, who also makes a return with the update. He keeps the same sea shanty melodies from New Leaf, and I'd have it no other way, cause as far as I'm concerned, these are certified hood classics. I found at least one fragment on every one of his tours, but there was one time where I found a regular gyroid along with a fragment. You can also find fragments on your island after it snows or rains just like in the old games, but you don't really have any control over that. You'll have to plant and water the fragments and give them a day to grow into full gyroids, and I like that they've turned them into kind of a plant. You're supposed to be able to find rare stuff on Cap's tours, but the only surprises I've found so far is sugarcane and a couple islands that were out of season. The update also gives us a bunch of new items and 16 new villagers. We obviously don't have time to go over every item, but all 16 of the new villagers are bangers. I can see every one of them skyrocketing in price on Nookazon, so if you can, definitely scoop one. I managed to find Quinn during some island hopping, and she might be a permanent resident on my island now. I think she's got a little thing going with Vivian.
That's weird. That's suspicious.
Turning Harv's Island into a mini farmer's market was such a good idea. Like, I actually have a reason to go there now. I think I literally went to his island once before this update, and that was just for him to introduce himself. The vendors don't change items every day, which I like since they don't lose any wow factor when they come to your island. And it's exciting to see what everyone is carrying when the restock happens every Monday. I do think once a week is a bit too long though. A restock every 3 or 4 days would feel a lot better to me. There is still a reason to go every day for the first week though. Harriet will give you 7 new hairstyles and you can only learn 1 a day. None of them are really for me, but they're free, so why not? Farming was by far my most hyped announcement from the trailer. I've been waiting for them to introduce it for so long and they kinda gave it to us with pumpkins, but they got boring pretty quickly after the first couple harvests. Admittedly, the farming isn't quite as engaging as I imagined it would be, probably because unlike games like Harvest Moon and Stardew, you aren't really meant to play multiple days in one sitting of Animal Crossing, and it takes 3 real days for crops to fully harvest. All you really do is water them once a day to improve their yield, and it's pretty hands-off. Still, I'm happy that they fledged this mechanic out a little more. There are 6 new crops that you can buy starters for from Leaf, so there's a bit more variety than when we just had pumpkins. This feels like a really good number given the somewhat limited uses of them, but I can maybe see them adding a few more crops with small updates in the future. Let's have a moment of silence for everyone that had their entire island filled out and had to make a new spot for their garden though. Paired with farming is cooking, which is something that I didn't know I needed but am totally here for. Cooking is essentially its own DIY system, and you learn how to make new dishes in the same way you learn other DIY recipes. You can find them on the beach once a day or drop in on someone like,
"Oh, what's cooking good looking?"
and get a recipe, hopefully one that you don't already have. Cooking doesn't just involve the new farming items either. Fruit and mushrooms are also used in some of the recipes, and there are a lot that require fish. Whenever you catch a fish that you can use in a recipe, your character will learn it on the spot, so those ones are pretty easy to farm if you're having bad luck with the standard methods of learning new recipes. Cooking mainly seems to serve aesthetic purposes, since you can use everything you cook as decoration, but you can potentially make some decent bells off of some of the dishes too. Of course, you could just sell the crops themselves, but I wouldn't really recommend that since they only sell for 350 bells each. Instead, you should use them to make dishes which sell for a lot more. As you'd expect, the more complicated recipes sell for more bells, and I've seen single dishes go up to around 2,000, so about 80,000 bells for a full inventory. Not quite turnip level profit, but for something so easily farmable, it's definitely not bad. You can also wrap dishes and give them to your neighbors as gifts. This is useful for when a villager has a home that you like the look of and don't want to mess up by giving them furniture, which increases friendship level faster but can lead to some pretty disastrous homes.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
I would assume that cooked dishes give about the same amount of friendship points as furniture, or at the very least more than fruit, but there isn't really a way to test without any hard numbers. A couple smaller things in the update. There are new Nook Miles tasks related to stuff added in the update. Have a cup of coffee, cook something, water crops, things like that. Not a huge deal, but I'll always take more variants in the Nook Miles tasks. They've added a few more dialogue options for villagers, so you hopefully aren't reading the same thing quite as often. And lastly, villagers can now invite you over to their place and randomly pop up over your house if you're in it. This was a new leaf, and I always thought it was a nice little surprise for one of your friends to just want to hang out. They'll bring you gifts and offer to play games with you while you're hanging out, so the two of you aren't just sitting around looking at each other. It seems like the only game they play is high card, low card, and I don't really know why, since there were already a few more card games programmed in for campsite visitors. There's a chance that the other games are available and the dice have just landed on high card, low card every time for me, but if not, I'd like to see them added in a future update. Even after a year and a half of updates, there are still a few things that we're missing, most of which seem to be quality of life improvements. Bulk crafting and crafting from your storage while at home are somehow still not in the game. The cycle of going to a workbench to see what mats you need for a recipe, opening and finding them in your inventory, putting them back into your pocket, and then finally going back to the workbench is one of those things that's not really a huge deal, but it's just annoying enough to warrant players asking for a change. One that it seems like we're not getting. At the very least, we got the shed to access your storage without going all the way back to your house. It doesn't seem like they're doing anything about the crazy amount of duplicate DIYs you're bound to have by now either. Seriously, what am I supposed to do with all of these DIY recipes? I get that they want you to have duplicates to give to your friends, but by now, almost everyone that didn't just get the game is getting more duplicates than new recipes. The cooking system is definitely helping dilute the pool, but it's still a problem. Ever since it started becoming an issue, I've been thinking they need to add a machine or a character where we can store all of our duplicate DIY recipes, or better yet, exchange them for ones that we don't have. Maybe 3 or 5 duplicate recipes in exchange for one that we're guaranteed not to have. Finally, Timmy and Tommy's store still doesn't have that giant store upgrade that we've been waiting for. If you don't know, your store upgraded to a giant emporium with multiple levels and more items in previous games. It feels like we're in a weird middle stage evolution, and I was sure that they'd add a final store upgrade in the update, but it doesn't look like we're gonna get it. I'll be completely honest, the Paradise Planning DLC caught me by surprise. I seriously was not expecting to like this anywhere near as much as I do. Like, it's a problem. It's taking every fiber of my being not to close this Word document and boot up the game to design just one more home. I skipped on Happy Home Designer for the 3DS since I'd already put hundreds of hours into New Leaf, and the idea of buying an entirely new game based around a pretty small part of Animal Crossing didn't sit right with me. Happy Home Designer only sold about a quarter of the units New Leaf did, so I'm guessing a lot of people had a similar mindset. This time around, Nintendo decided it would be better suited as DLC, which it is, and with an entrance fee of only $20, going against basically everything we've come to know about Animal Crossing, there's actually a gameplay loop and a bit of a story here. Designing homes and facilities is all you really have to do to progress the story in Paradise Planning, and while it's not really anything to write home about, you do get to have a couple nice moments with your new coworkers, and I thought it was nice that they sprinkled just a tiny bit of narrative in here for us. A huge part of what makes Animal Crossing is the freedom the game gives you to do essentially whatever you want, but we're reaching a point where many of us have done all we've wanted to do. There are people with 500, 700, 1,000 hours in this game that have every tile of their island exactly how they want it, so it's a nice change of pace to have a separate, slightly structured segment of the game now. The gameplay loop here is very simple, essentially only having 4 steps. Walk up to a client that you want to design a home for, design the home, get paid, and repeat. You're paid in Poke, which is separate from bells, and for the most part is only used to buy rare furniture on the island where the DLC takes place. Each client will give you a vague theme or idea and a couple mandatory furniture pieces you need to use in order to make them happy. But other than that, you're basically free to do whatever you want. I think this is a great way to include the freedom and player expression we love about the game while still giving the player a bit of direction. Along with the mandatory items, each project will come with a group of suggested items that fit the theme the villager is going for, though you aren't limited to only using these items. Piper, for example, wants a spa theme. With the suggested items, you can either go for a beach spa or an indoor spa vibe, or mix the two together like I did. Frigo wants a home fit for a movie lover. You could give her a more traditional home that just has a section for watching movies, but I decided to go for a full-on theater vibe, foregoing a bed and other essential living items. I went into this knowing that interior design hasn't ever really been my strong suit, but I was hoping that I'd get better at it as I got more practice, and I've gotta say, I've surprised myself with some of the homes I've done. Having a list of items that fit well together already picked out, as opposed to having to collect the items over a span of time like you do in the base game, does wonders for the creative flow, and the designing mode makes it really easy to place and rearrange everything until you find what fits your vision. After you complete enough homes, you'll get to design a facility, which are larger scale projects that are more hands-off. They'll require you to use at least 4 chairs and 2 tables, for example, but it's up to you to decide what chairs and tables you want. Once you finish the facility, you can select and dress employees, and it'll be populated by old and potential clients. Every now and then, events will be held in these facilities, either by running into a special character on the island or reaching a milestone in your designing career. Leaf gave a lecture about flowers in the school, which led to me being able to use hybrid flowers while decorating. This is a good time to mention that you can go back to any of your previous projects and do some remodeling whenever you want. You unlock so many new items and decorating techniques as you complete jobs, and you'll inevitably have a client that you don't like any of the wallpaper options for, or you'll be missing a specific item that you think will look good in their place. All you've got to do is click on a client in the Happy Home networking app on your Nook phone, and you can pay them a visit to do some redecorating. You can also move a client to a different location at any point, and I was happy to find out that the interior will stay the same after the move. There was a point where I wanted to move Walt to give him a more fitting yard, and the game doesn't explicitly tell you that you won't lose progress after moving a client, so I was kinda taking a leap of faith when I did it. They've also sneakily put a bit of a progression system in here. You'll start out basically only with the ability to place furniture like you've always been able to, with the addition of hanging items on the ceiling, and with a very limited catalog. But as you complete projects, your catalog will grow and you'll learn new techniques to give more variance in your decorating. Remember how I said that each home will come with a suggested page of furniture? Well, once you've completed the job, you can then use all of those suggested items on future projects. This encourages you to try out a bunch of different themes to faster grow your catalog rather than design a bunch of homes that have similar ones. As far as techniques go, I was pretty taken aback by how many of them you learn throughout the course of the DLC. Even after beating the main story, you continue to learn new ways to decorate houses. I'm not going to go over all of them because a lot of them were unexpected inclusions that ended up being nice little surprises, and I don't want to spoil them for you. We will talk about partitions and polishing because they were both in the trailer and were easily my most used of the new features. Partitions are great ways to section off areas in a room with different themes, and I initially underestimated how much I'd use them. They do bring out a glaring omission in the inability to change flooring for a specific section of a house though. There were times where I sectioned off a bathroom from a bedroom or a kitchen from a living room, and I wanted to use tile for that area and have carpet or wood everywhere else, but the option isn't available. I think this could have pretty easily been done by allowing the player to drag their cursor to make a square on the floor and choose different flooring for that section. You can kinda do it with rugs, but a lot of them aren't seamless patterns, so it looks a little janky. You also can't hang any wall items on partitions, which is a bit of a bummer. Polishing was another thing in the trailer that I saw and went,
I do not need this.
I didn't really see how useful making objects sparkle would be, but what they don't tell you in the trailer is that you get a few options for what effects you want to polish onto an object. It's worth mentioning that everything you learn in the DLC can be used back in your home on the main island. It would have been easy to leave Paradise Planning in a bubble and only make all of the new decorating features available here, so I'm glad Nintendo went the extra mile. I was also pleasantly surprised by just how much you actually get to design on a given project. Obviously you have the interior, but also the model and colors of the exterior, their yard, and even the clothes that the client is wearing can all be customized. Some projects will actually have themes that are better fit for outdoors, which potentially puts more of an emphasis on the location chosen during the planning phase. With all of these options at your fingertips, it's so easy to spend 30 to 40 minutes on just one house, and I don't think I've spent less than 20 on any of them. There isn't any gatekeeping here like there often is in the base game either, so if you have the time, you're free to do as many homes in a single sitting as you want. Kind of a stealth bonus of the DLC is this is a great way for you to collect villagers that you can't fit on your island. I didn't even think about this until I was walking along the beach and saw Piper, who I love but haven't been able to find while island hopping. It's not quite the same as having them on your island, but the fact that you can visit them whenever you want after finishing their home counts for something. You can also invite animals from your island using souvenir chocolates if you want to design a vacation home for them. Finally, I want to talk about your portfolio and the social aspects of the DLC. After finishing a project, you're prompted to enter photo mode and take a picture of it. All of the different lenses and photography options from the base game are available, and they've even added a pro mode with the update that gives a few more options to help you get pictures exactly how you want them. All of the pictures you take are added into a portfolio on the Happy Home networking app, and I think it's a really nice feature to be able to look at all the homes you've designed with just the press of a few buttons. If you have Nintendo Switch Online, you can share photos from your portfolio online and look at other people's creations in the app too. I'm pretty sure that each of the individual villagers keeps their same ideas for their vacation home throughout every game, so it'll be interesting to see how a bunch of people tackle the same idea differently. All in all, I'm very happy with where we've landed with the final big update for New Horizons. The update in Paradise Planning DLC felt like a nice cherry on top for what was already a pretty amazing game. If you don't already have New Horizons or the DLC and have been thinking about getting them, or even if you just haven't played in a while, now is as good a time as any to jump in. There's a lot of stuff for you to do, so the sooner you get started, the better. If you've made it this far, I'm gonna assume that you liked the video, so do me a favor and hit the like button for me. Every like goes a long way in getting the video and channel out to more people, so each one is appreciated. If you want to see more like this, you can subscribe to the channel so you know whenever I upload. Thanks for sticking around until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.